The Vikings have a decision to make, Parker.
Yes, they do.
And depending on what you want this thing to look like, if you think that JJ McCarthy can replicate the same success that a Sam Darnold has, and all that we've heard, before the injury was JJ McCarthy looked great. JJ McCarthy was throwing dimes in practice. Obviously, he had some interceptions as well, but he seemed like he was grasping it. They said JJ McCarthy looked like possibly the most pro-ready quarterback in his respective class because of how he operated at Michigan. So the question now becomes, what happens with JJ McCarthy? What happens with Sam Darnold? Is this a flash in the pan type year? Or has Sam Darnold found a way to put it all together under Kevin O'Connell, under the system? So the question is, it's kind of a twofold thing. Do we think that this success is, can be replicated? And do we think, if you're the Minnesota Vikings, right, Parker, let's say you're general manager, owner, what do you do?
Yeah, no, the most realistic thing that they should do as an organization should be to franchise tag Sam Darnold and say, "Hey, you're going to show us that you can do this again, and then we'll give you that extension." I mean, this is a guy that was drafted 3rd overall. Everyone loved his profile coming out. He was supposed to be this big shot. He just kind of had a rocky journey to get there. So maybe it's just the resurgence of these quarterbacks that have needed to find new situations and needed to kind of get their experience in the NFL before they really turned out into something. And we've been seeing that a lot lately with a few of these guys. But I think if I'm the Vikings, I think you tag Darnold and you say, "Hey, JJ, we're gonna go out. If he's able to do it again for a year, then we'll have to make a decision. Maybe we keep you, maybe we don't. However that has to go." But you let Sam Darnold at least prove it to you before you just get rid of a JJ McCarthy, because what you don't want to do is sacrifice what you can consider right now at least a relatively quote unquote known commodity in Sam Darnold, right? You've seen what he's done on the field for you, and you don't expect that much of a regression coming into next year. But you also don't want to just ship out JJ, because if you do, and you have a guy like Sam Darnold come into next season and really just flop or fall out, then you've now just burned 2 bridges and you're starting back at square one. So I think it's a franchise tag Sam Darnold, and you kind of let it ride out, let him kind of compete with the job with JJ next year. But I do worry about that turning into a potential situation like we're seeing in Atlanta, and that I think would be the worst case scenario.
But do you worry about potentially stunning his growth? I mean, JJ McCarthy's growth. Because JJ McCarthy, by all metrics, the reason why he was drafted was because people said they believed he could be pro ready. So for me, it's one of those things where it's like, JJ McCarthy's not a guy that probably needs to sit on the bench. JJ McCarthy's a guy that probably could go out there and be a starter. And if Kevin O'Connell is the quarterback whisperer and this Vikings team is the quarterback whispering team that people believe them to be, it might make sense to just see if, I guess they can replicate this with JJ McCarthy, I think. But I think there's a reason why you spent the pick that you did. But it's tough. It's tough to move off of it's tough to move off of a Sam Darnold after the season that he's having. It really is rough. You brought something up interesting. You said if you were the Minnesota Vikings, you'd franchise tag him and then let him play out this year. For me, I believe maybe you should franchise tag the guy. But what if you franchise a tag and you say, "Hey, listen, teams, if you want him, come get him. Call
No,
us.
I agree. 100%.
Tell us what you want. Tell us what you're willing to give up for Sam Darnold." Because with the play that he put forth this season, is it out of the realm of possibility you can get the 1st-round pick for Sam Darnold? Maybe. Is it?
I don't think that's crazy, and I do wonder. I think as Sam Darnold's agent right now, you're hoping that the Vikings just set the price, at $40 million on the franchise tag, and then let you just go shopping and say, "Hey, if we can find a situation that Sam Darnold would like to be in or wants to be in, that's going to get us more than that 40 next year, then yeah, we'll ship ourselves out there. We'll head out and we'll wash our hands of it, move on to JJ McCarthy." But I do think an ideal situation would be letting them both stay on the Vikings next season. But I think
Mhm.
as the Vikings, you're not necessarily opposed to moving a Sam Darnold, especially if you can again put him on the tag, get that off your books. Now you're kind of resetting with that younger guy who is extremely young. That was one of the biggest pros in his profile as a prospect. Is how much time he has. That's why I'm not necessarily worried about him sitting an extra year or two. But I think long term, if you're not looking at Sam Darnold getting a 5-year extension after the franchise tag, then I think you are more than open to moving on from him, and that's the situation I think they're in. So,
And I'll be honest with you, if I'm a team out there like the Giants,
mhm.
I don't even know if I there's no chance in hell that'll happen. No chance the Jets will happen. No chance.
No,
Just the way that ended.
they're out of
But
that market
here,
for sure.
I know, right? But here's here's a team that I do want you to consider, Parker. What about the San Francisco 49ers? What about the Niners?
That'd be a fun landing spot, especially with the Shanahan system. They're gonna have a fourth place schedule next year. I mean, that'd be a very favorable situation for a guy to pick up. And then again, they're just kind of in a similar situation, but not so similar with Brock Purdy next year. Is that them moving on from Brock? Do they run the 2 quarterback system next
Well,
season and just have a lot of money tied up there?
Park, I believe has Brock gotten the contract? I don't think Brock's gotten his contract yet.
No, he's
And
not.
he's gotten this nerve issue in his elbow. It's sad. A guy like Brock Purdy has done great for you the last couple of seasons, and it's like I've worked all my life to get to this point where I'm going to make money because I've taken this team to a Super Bowl. I've been a perennial uh playoff team. You know, and then you have this unfortunate injury. Your wide receiver, your wide receiver essentially tore I think he tore his ACL, the guy that you guys gave the big contract to, and Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuels, whatever. This roster is going to go through a little bit of a interesting period because they kind of built this roster with the win now mode mentality. But the
Mhm.
question now becomes, all right, has JJ McCarthy, not JJ McCarthy, I'm sorry, has um Brock Purdy reached his ceiling with this 49ers team? I feel like since Kyle Shanahan took over the 49ers, he always had these quarterback projects that he wanted to take on essentially and build and put them in a right position to be successful the whole 9 yards, right? And guess what? Well, that happened, right? He's able to do that, but there's
Mhm.
only so much you can do. You went out there, you traded for C-Mac, you did all that stuff. You tried to put together a championship level roster, and for whatever reason, it hurt. It didn't happen, right? It didn't happen. A lot of the pieces that you went out there and grabbed, or the pieces that you added onto, got injured. My thought process through it all is maybe it might make sense for Sam Darnold to go back to Kyle, because ideally, wherever Sam Darnold decides to land, if he doesn't get franchise tag, he's gotta want to put because he's gonna be the most sought after quarterback on the market. He's
Mhm.
got to basically say, hey, I want to go to a team that has the structure in place, right? That will allow me to be successful. Like we could be witnessing sort of like a free agency unlike any other for Sam Darnold if he actually hits free agency, where he goes out there, he vets teams, he talks to teams, they wine and dine him, they talk about the entire structure. Like Sam Darnold is going to have his pick of the litter.
Oh yeah,
He's going to
for
be able
sure.
to go out there and say, hey, listen, let me meet with the Niners. Let me meet with the Giants. Sell me on what this thing is going to look like. Talk to me about the offensive structure. Talk to me about the pieces that are in place. And I think that's a very cool position for him to be in personally. I think it's a
No,
very
for
cool
sure.
position. But when we start talking like that, because you don't go from the Vikings where the offense is super structured, they have a passing game coordinator, a head coach that's an offensive minded, a great offensive coordinator. You don't go from that saying, well, I'm just going to go to a team that has none of that in place. You know what I mean? Like, I
No,
think
for
it
sure.
all has to make sense. That's just
Well,
my
that's
thought
why.
process.
No, he's in a great spot, right? Where we talking about a guy like Shadur or a guy like even Cam Ward coming out, and it's like, oh, this quarterback's going to end up on a bad team, and it's how they're going to be able to handle themselves on a bad team. But now you have a guy like Sam Darnold who's been in the league. He has experience in the league, and now you're gonna set him up in this position where even if he does get franchise tagged, he's still going to be able to go around and have all of this extremely high market value that teams are going to be willing to come and get him from the Vikings for. And I don't think the Vikings are going to be opposed to that at all. And that's where I think a team like the 49ers is really interesting because that's a team that feels like it has a lot of its pieces in place, like you talked about. It feels like it's a situation where he can go in there. It doesn't have to be necessarily the guy. He just has to be the facilitator of that offense within that, high level team already. And that's why I like, looking at teams like even potentially the Pittsburgh Steelers for Sam
Mm-hmm.
Darnold, where they have, again, a very unique quarterback situation where they don't necessarily even know internally what they're going to do next season. If you have a guy like Sam Darnold step into that building, are you keeping a Russell Wilson? Are you keeping a Justin Fields? Are you moving on and kind of changing what your quarterback looks like? And then again, you have teams like the Browns even who are looking for a quarterback. And does
Mm-hmm.
Sam Darnold hate that situation? They have a lot of fun pieces there as well. So I don't know, his offseason journey is going to be a blast. And I think Sam Darnold, I selfishly hope it's a decision that isn't made too early because you want to kind of see the saga play out, see all the drama unfold of him testing the market and exploring his options. But I'm really just interested to see where he lands because there is a non-zero chance that he's just in Minnesota again next season.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think that there is a chance that that does happen, but at some point you got to start seeing what you got in JJ McCarthy. Even if
For sure.
you wind up losing a Sam Darnold, I think the most practical way to go about it is franchise tagging Sam Darnold, trading him, seeing what you can get for him, and force one of these teams' hands. But I think you should also allow Sam to dictate where he'd want to go. You also want to do right by him and put him in a situation where he's going to be successful.